was coming home from work one night when I had to stop for gas. I parked my car at the gas pump and went inside to pay with whatever cash I had on me. There were already 3 people waiting in line when I walked in and queued up. We were all stuck behind one of those annoying lottery guys who love to take their sweet time buying and cashing out like 10 different kinds of tickets. So I ended up making random small talk with the guy ahead of me. As we were chatting, another guy in the store saw us and thought we were actually friends hanging out together. This other guy came over and butted in, also cutting in front of me to get between us. He had really light blonde hair and a terrible bowl cut like something out of the 80s, and just started talking like a total asshole.
What's up, dudes? I'm Timothy, but you can call me Tim. Hey, you got a problem, man? You're looking at me kind of funny. Nah, man, just trying to get home. Long day at work, you know? I know exactly what you need. My hotel's across the street, and I just hit the liquor store. I think I'm alright, man. I don't really drink anyway. That's lame. What about you? I know you drink.
Yeah, I do, but I think I'll stick with these.
You gotta be kidding me. Who gets drunk off 2 beers? Listen, I got the good stuff, plus some. You guys got Snapchat?
I felt cornered into adding this Timothy guy on Snapchat, but I didn't mind as I barely used it anymore. The other guy added him on Snapchat too. Then after that, Tim didn't really talk to me. It seemed like he was slowly convincing the other guy to leave with him. I was honestly thankful to this random stranger for occupying that guy so that he wouldn't bother me anymore. Eventually, they made it to the front of the line. The stranger paid for his drinks. Then he and Tim walked out together. Less than a minute later, I had paid for my gas and was exiting the store to go fill up my car. I could see Tim and the stranger crossing the street to the hotel. It was one of those extended stay places that looked pretty sketchy, so I was glad I wasn't spending my night there. After I filled up, I went home. I made myself some dinner, cleaned up, then started getting ready for bed. Just as I was plugging my phone in, I got a notification. It was a snap from the Timothy guy. I didn't really want to open it. After all, I just met him against my will, but I knew I'd get curious and stay awake thinking about what it could be, so I opened it, and when I did, it turned out to be just what I expected. A selfie of Tim and the stranger holding up shots with a caption saying, "You should join us." I didn't respond. I just closed Snapchat and put my phone on Do Not Disturb, then laid down to go to sleep. Yet for some reason, I felt strangely awake. Something was bothering me in the back of my mind, but I couldn't tell what exactly. Maybe it was something I said or didn't say in that whole interaction at the gas station. I kept tossing and turning for hours, but nothing seemed to put me at ease. Eventually, at around 3 or 4 a.m., I resorted to scrolling through my phone. I went through Instagram, Facebook, even a little bit of Reddit before I finally reopened Snapchat. It was a trip down memory lane at first, tapping through my friends' stories that I hadn't seen in years, but I couldn't avoid Tim's story sitting at the top of my messages. When I tapped into it, I couldn't believe what I saw. It was a video of him beating the life out of the stranger we met. The poor bastard was bloody, covering his face, begging the guy to stop.
Take it! You deserve it! Don't fall asleep! I want you to feel every bit of this!
I was frozen, watching it all unfold, story after story, and it just kept getting worse. When the guy woke up, Tim pulled his eyes open and started cutting his face. He stabbed him over and over, kicking him into the ground. The stranger was awake every time he was beaten or stabbed, and the videos were all a few minutes apart, like Tim was waiting for him to wake up, to experience the agony he was inflicting. Finally, in the last video, Tim filmed himself slitting the stranger's throat, killing him. As soon as I convinced myself I wasn't having a nightmare, I called the police. I gave them the snap story, which led them to arresting Timothy immediately. But of course, it was already too late. The stranger's body had already been dumped, after having been stabbed a dozen times, and even burned. I think about this night all the time. I can't help telling myself that if I'd been watching the story post sooner, I might have been able to save that poor man's life. However, I'm ashamed to admit that the thought which scares me more is that it could have been me. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a man who pleaded guilty to charges related for posting videos on social media of himself beating another man to death 3 years ago. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Timothy Kendrick 35, pleaded guilty in June to charges of aggravated murder, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and gross use of a corpse. The victim was 30-year-old Drew Mendelbaum, whose body was found in July of 2021. The police said Kendrick met Mendelbaum at a gas station, and the two of them returned to Kendrick's hotel room to drink. Police say Mendelbaum had been stabbed more than 45 times, beaten, and his body was set on fire. He was found burned and covered in a shower curtain with zip ties around his ankles. His body was left just outside of a business complex. Investigators arrested Kendrick shortly after they said they found Snapchat videos of the torture. I moved out of my parents' place and into my own apartment pretty early on. I didn't have too many friends when I first moved out, and I didn't really know what kind of places I should go to make new ones. So I was fine with letting the social media algorithm set me up with random people. One night, this guy added me on Snapchat. His name was Lewis. I added him back, not thinking much of it. We began chatting after he sent me a selfie barely a few minutes later. The caption said, "Nice to meet you." He wasn't ugly, but he wasn't my type either. Just kind of a plain, average guy. Figuring I'd entertain it for a bit, I sent him a selfie back, saying, "Nice to meet you too." We ended up talking back and forth for a while. This continued on and off into the next week or so, then steadily for a few days, and before I knew it, we had a best friends badge and a streak going. Once we figured out we lived next to each other, we decided to meet up in person. I made it clear from the very beginning that this was a purely platonic friendship. He seemed okay with that, so we hung out a few times here and there. However, the more we talked on Snapchat, the more Lewis actually started developing feelings for me. He started offering to buy my groceries when we ran errands together. I insisted that I wanted to cover them myself, but he was becoming more persistent, tapping his card and paying for it. Afterwards, I reminded him that I just wanted to hang out as friends. I explained all over again that I wasn't ready for a serious relationship and I wasn't interested in one either. He just nodded and brushed it off, almost like he wasn't taking what I was saying serious. But over text, he became even bolder about his feelings, saying he wanted me to put more effort into our relationship and that he wanted to go on actual dates. For the 10th time, I had to tell him I didn't have any romantic feelings towards him and that I didn't want to be anything more than friends. It was getting annoying and weird as hell. The next day, I ignored his text while I was at work. It was just my luck though, that my motorcycle wouldn't start when I was trying to leave, and nobody was responding but Lewis. He offered to take me home and fix my motorcycle later. I stupidly agreed. Then he came to pick me up at my apartment complex. He asked to use my bathroom before leaving. I let him since he helped me out. When he came out of the bathroom, we went to hug goodbye, but something awful happened. While we were hugging, his arm slipped down from my shoulders to my waist. Then he pulled me in for a kiss. I began fighting him off, trying to push and shove him off of me. Finally, I hit him hard enough to get him to let me go, but it wasn't over. He backed me into a corner in my own apartment, then revealed himself to be the monster he truly was.
What is wrong with you? How could you do this to me?
You're such a goddamn tease. I'm tired of being friend-zoned. If you don't want to be with me, then I'm going to stop helping you.
I didn't ask for any of that.
Yeah? And what about your bike? You asked me to help you with that, didn't you?
That's different. How can't you see that?
You seem confused. So let me be 100% clear. You either get all of me or none of me.
Then I choose none. Now get out!
You still don't understand. If I can't have you, then no one can!
I hadn't seen my sister Kelly in a few days. I didn't think anything was wrong, but then I got a call from her work. They said she had a no-call, no-showed and left her bike in the parking lot, which was completely unlike her. She wouldn't respond to any of my calls or texts either, so I went to her apartment and knocked on the door, but got no reply. Becoming more concerned by the second, I went to the office and begged them to give me a key so I could check on her. They let me have one, and then I went back up to her apartment and opened the door. When I stepped inside, I saw the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. My sister was laying face down on the floor in a pool of blood. I dropped to my knees and sobbed, screaming, begging for it to be a dream, but I never woke up. My sister was dead. The police came, and they soon had their prime suspect, this guy she had been talking to who went by the name of Louis. They looked at my sister's Snapchat logs as evidence, then arrested him after finishing the investigation before the end of the day. Ever since she passed, our family has been shattered. Taking my sister away from us was the most selfish act that a man could have committed, and I hope he pays for it by living in agony for the rest of his worthless life.
A review of a victim's Snapchat log reveals the man's request for actual dates and more effort from her, with the victim telling him she was only interested in a friendship and did not feel a romantic attraction. A man in Minnesota has been charged with taking out his friend with a firearm at close range because she didn't want a romantic relationship with him. Jose Luis Lopez Zique, 27, was charged for the June 16th slaying of Kaylee Grace Arseth, 22. Arseth's family reached out for a wellness check after she failed to report to work. Police arrived to find her car in the parking lot and her apartment door locked. A locator app on her phone showed that it was inside the apartment, so when she failed to respond to knocks, officers obtained a key from the apartment management and gained access. Inside, they found Arseth face down on her living room floor in a pool of blood, with an apparent wound to her head. Friends of the victim told police that Arseth had recently met a man online who went by the name Louis. They determined that the pair had spent time together in person and that Louis bought Arseth things on shopping trips, but the relationship was not romantic or intimate. Investigators found Arseth's computer logged into Snapchat, where she shared a best friend's badge and had a streak that had just ended with Louis. After her death, Louis sent no further snaps to the victim. Police then began exploring messages with Louis, where they uncovered a frustration growing between them, with Louis asking for a romantic relationship and Arseth responding that she only wanted a friendship. Arseth asked Louis if he was available on June 16th to help her with her motorcycle. That's when Louis picked her up that day after work, brought her to her home, and did what he did. A few years ago, I met a woman named Allie. We ran into each other while ordering drinks at a bar. I hit on her a little bit and managed to get her Snapchat. The next day, I hit her up to see if she was still interested. It turned out that she was, so we kept in touch for a while. Over the next couple of weeks, we went on a few dates. I was hesitant to get super involved with her because she still wasn't over her ex, or more accurately, her ex was not over her. The ex-boyfriend in question was this crazy jealous psycho guy named Scott. I could tell that Allie didn't want to talk about him, but she didn't have much of a choice because he was constantly stalking her, messaging her on Snapchat, and showing up everywhere. They'd recently gone through a nasty breakup, but it was clear that Scott still wanted her. During our conversations, Allie told me about how manipulative and possessive the guy was. The idea of her hanging out with any other man would turn him batshit crazy. Even going out with her female friends was also too difficult for him to accept. She eventually had him blocked and all that, but it seemed like he always continued to stalk her. Now, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous, but given how much she wanted to be with me, I brushed the red flags under the rug. However, one night, we went on a date, probably our 4th or 5th one. As we were chatting and having dinner, Allie suddenly froze, and her face went pale. I tried to snap her out of it, but then I realized she couldn't stop staring out the restaurant window. That's when I looked over to where she was staring at, and saw a man standing right outside staring at us, with a face full of rage. I knew it had to be Scott. Right there was the confirmation of every terrifying thing she had been saying about him, that he really was stalking her. He didn't just stay outside the restaurant though. No, he charged in, grabbed me by the collar, then pulled me up out of my chair and started screaming in my face.
Who the hell are you? And what are you doing with her? That's my bitch!
Scott, stop! Leave him alone!
Shut up, you thought! pH balance must be off from all the dudes you've been screwing. Listen, man, don't do this. I'll do whatever I want. I'll break every bone in your body if you lay a finger on her. Ah!
Luckily for me, as soon as Scott slammed me onto the table, waiters came out and pulled him off of me. But I swear, I was a second away from getting my eye gouged out with a steak knife. Immediately after, despite their efforts to keep him there to face consequences, he managed to get away and ran out of the restaurant, disappearing. We were asked if we wanted to call the police anyway, but I could tell by the look in Allie's face that she just wanted the night to be over, so I took her home. We were also told not to come back since they held us partially responsible for the damage to the tableware. After that explosive encounter with Scott, I pumped the brakes on hanging out with Allie until it seemed like things had blown over. We weren't sure how he had found her, so we didn't want to risk a repeat of the same thing. Of course, we considered getting a restraining order, but we were worried it would make him do something even crazier. Plus, it would probably take a while before it would come into full effect. Before dropping her off, I parked on her driveway, and we sat in my car chatting for a bit till she was comfortable enough to head inside. The whole time, we were both paranoid thinking that Scott would show up again, but he didn't. After about an hour or so, Allie got comfortable enough to head inside, then I waved her goodbye and drove home. About 30 minutes later, I got home and sent Allie a selfie on Snapchat with a caption saying, "Good night." However, she never opened it. I assumed she had just passed out since it was late, and we'd had quite a few drinks. I then tried to get to sleep myself, but I couldn't stop thinking about that encounter I had with that Scott guy. I had this terrible feeling that something was wrong. I just hit that point in the relationship where I was really starting to care about her, so I thought I was being irrational, but I eventually couldn't take it anymore and got back in my car to go check on her. As soon as I parked outside her house, I knew something was wrong. The door was wide open. I jumped out of my car and ran inside, where my heart shattered. Allie was dead on the floor, in an absolute mess. I called the police. I told them what I knew, and it very quickly became a search for her ex-boyfriend Scott. When they arrested him, he admitted he'd been stalking her the entire time. He had confessed to using the Snap Map feature on Snapchat to find her location. He had found the place we were going on a date, then decided to later break into her house and wait for her to return. The moment I left, he killed her out of jealousy. I've never been able to face the world the same since. This story was inspired by a disturbing incident regarding a Kansas man convicted of taking out his ex-girlfriend in Nebraska. The suspect was Aldrich Scott, who was found guilty more than a year after the disappearance of his ex, Carrie Allen, 43, according to reports. Allen vanished in November of 2022, and Scott was initially charged with kidnapping. Police later determined that Scott tracked her location on Snapchat and drove from Topeka, Kansas, to her home in Omaha, where he then waited until she arrived before taking her out with a firearm. Prosecutors had argued that Allen had been on a date at a restaurant. When Scott tracked her location, Scott fled the country and was eventually arrested in Belize. Allen's body was found in a shallow grave. Scott was sentenced to life in prison,